What's up, everyone? Today I'm going to break down 5 grooves in 5. They're going to start off pretty easy, and then by the last one, they end up being not so pretty easy. Most popular music is counted in 4-beat cycles, but that doesn't mean that you have to write music in 4-beat cycles. Lots of my favorite music uses odd time signatures or odd meters. So now, instead of counting in 4-beat cycles, we're going to slap another beat onto the end of that, and we'll have 5-beat cycles. So instead of just counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we need to count all the way up to 5. Such a big number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And having just one extra beat in each measure gives us a lot of different possibilities and gives us access to all kinds of different feels and stuff. So with this first groove, I'm going to play quarter notes on the hi-hats, just slapping every beat. I'm going to play the snare drum on the and of 2 and then right on beat 5. And then the bass drum's not doing anything too ridiculous yet. You'll see in the notation. And even though we have this 5-beat measure, you could kind of break it into 2 chunks. So the first 3 beats almost feel like their own little self-contained phrase, and then the last 2 beats can also feel like their own little thing. But altogether, that first groove sounds like this. If you've never played in an odd meter before, it can feel real weird at first, so start as slowly as you need to, and count out loud when you're first getting into this stuff. You will thank yourself in the long run, I promise. As you get more comfortable with it, feel free to embellish it in different ways. Try adding some ghost notes, changing up the kick rhythm a little bit, do something different on the hi-hats. But I think that first one is a good groove to just kind of get your toes wet in the realm of 5/4. The second groove is going to have a little bit more action compared to the first one, and now we'll get deeper into the 8th and 16th notes. This particular groove almost feels like a little chunk of 2 beats plus a little chunk of 3 beats, whereas the first one maybe felt more like 3 plus 2. In that first groove, I was only playing quarter notes on the hi-hats. With the second groove, I'll play 1/8 notes on the hi-hats, and it's still going to have very much a rock feel to it. And now we got a couple of 16th notes on the bass drum, a couple of 16th notes on the snare drum, getting a little busier. But altogether, that second groove sounds like this. Right there, I played it with a pretty rigid 16th note feel, but I think this groove also sounds great when it's got a little bit of a swing to it. So try a swing feel as well. So the third groove is where things are going to get a bit more challenging. So this one is basically an adaptation of the Purdy shuffle. I went into much greater detail with these kinds of 5-beat shuffles in another video a little while back, but imagine you had a Purdy shuffle in a 6-feel, so backbeat on 4. Then just get rid of the last beat, and that pretty much leaves you with what I'm about to play. So this groove has a lot more subtlety to it, particularly in the form of ghost notes on the snare drum. And as these grooves get more complex, you'll want to work out different ways to sort of stage them up. So with this, I would start with just the shuffle pattern on the hi-hats, the kick on beat 1, and the backbeat on 4. And then you could begin adding the other bass drum hits one at a time, get those all together, and then you could begin adding the ghost notes. A couple of these ghost notes might give you some trouble at first. If I had to guess, it's going to be the ghost note groupings in beat 2, since one of them overlaps with the hi-hats, and the ghost note that happens at the middle part of beat 4, right after the backbeat. So when working in these ghost notes, start as slowly as you need to in order to position them properly, and make sure that you're playing them really nice and quietly. We want them to be more felt than they are heard. All right, groove number 4. Now we're going to enter the world of polymeters. The hi-hat rhythm is going to imply 5-4, or 5 beats of 16th notes, but the kick and snare combination kind of implies 4 beats of quintuplets. So we're kind of walking this rhythmic balance beam, and I think it's pretty darn cool. The 4th groove sounds like this. To build this one up, I would start by playing only quarter notes on the hi-hats and a more stripped down version of the kick and snare combination. So I mentioned that this whole thing is built around a 5-against-4 polymeter, and that really becomes apparent when we get rid of all the extra 16th notes. So if I have just quarter notes on the hi-hats, my kick and snare will essentially alternate playing every 5th 16th note. So the kick will play right on 1, then the snare is going to be 5 16th notes later, which would be the E of beat 2, and then the kick would play again 5 16th notes after that, which is going to be the and of 3, and then the last snare hit is going to be 5 16th notes after that. which is going to be on the of 4. And then it resets again after beat 5, square on 1. We got 4 hits between the kick and snare, evenly spaced against 5 beats on the hi-hats. 5 against 4. Then you could build in the rest of that kick pattern around that 5 against 4 rhythmic skeleton we established. Once you got that kick rhythm all sorted out, then you could get that second 16th note back into each of the hi-hat beats, which is something that I stole from Matt Garstka. Last but not least, the 5th groove. This groove is also built around a 5 against 4 polymeter, except now instead of playing on the hi-hats, I'm going to move my right hand over to the ride cymbal, and that's going to free up our left foot to keep time with the hi-hat pedal. I think your ear is going to get pulled much more toward the 4/4 quintuplet feel, and that's kind of the intent. I'm basically superimposing a full-on quintuplet groove into the 16th note grid. The only thing that's really going to imply 5/4 is my hi-hat foot. I'm just going to be stepping on each quarter note. Without that, it's really just 4/4 quintuplets. The context is kind of what you could argue makes it 5/4. So the last groove sounds like this. To begin building this one up, I would start with just the ride cymbal and your hi-hat foot. We really want to feel that 5/16 rhythm from the right hand against the quarter notes with your left foot. From there, I would add a stripped-down version of the kick and snare. So if I'm thinking 4/4 quintuplets, I would just have the kick on 1 and 3 and the snare on 2 and 4. But since we are superimposed into a 16th note grid in 5, it would be kick on 1, snare on the E of 2, kick on the and of 3, snare on the of 4. And then you just need to gradually fill in the rest of the kick and snare content. This one's also more challenging from a coordination perspective since we're using all 4 limbs at once, and the fact that your ears are kind of getting pulled in 2 separate directions certainly doesn't help. I would also recommend practicing the groove without the hi-hat foot just to sort of get the quintuplet side of things down, and if you could lock that groove in just as quintuplets, it'll probably make it at least a little bit easier to get the hi-hat foot going on underneath it. So those are 5 grooves in 5/4. From there, I would strongly encourage you to take each of these grooves and tweak them a little bit. Add some ghost notes, move backbeats around, change up the cymbal pattern, do something different with the bass drum. Just a lot of trial and error to make them more your own. If you like what you saw in this video, check out my Patreon page. Your support grants you access to transcriptions for this video, as well as transcriptions for all my other lesson videos. And follow me on Instagram @DrumMerhar to see more videos of my playing. As always, thanks for watching and see you next time.